First up, allow me to welcome a remarkable individual and a distinguished speaker, Mr. Rajesh Mohan. Mr. Rajesh Mohan has over a decade's experience in the market and liquidity risk. He's a seasoned professional at Deloitte's risk advisory practice. His expertise spans treasury management and strategic insights in the complex financial environment. Today, he is here to discuss the strategy of Deloitte and how with Deloitte, trust is non-fungible. Everyone, please put your hands together in a resounding round of applause for Mr. Rajesh.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Crypto enthusiasts and my fellow hodlers. Today we are here to discuss something unique. Not to worry, it's not about launching a new token related to cat memes, but I'm sure somebody is definitely working on it. But that being said, I promise not to shell any coins or bore you with complex technical jargons. What we are going to do is, we are planning to exchange a few ideas, discuss few things in detail. At the same time, acknowledge that crypto may range from wide variety of emotions, starting from Lambo dreams to all the way to real nightmares. That being said, we are here to guide you through all of it. So fasten your seat belts, hold on to your private key, and let's dive into the world of blockchain and digital asset. Cryptocurrency has been a roller coaster ride filled with enthusiasm, exuberance. At the same time, some point or the other, we have all questioned our decision why we are doing this. That being said, I want to break down few key components that has made blockchain the talk of the town. The first one being resilience. It's like the legendary video game bosses that never die. They are decentralized. They have no single point of failure. It is like talking to this one friend at 2 a.m. in the night who just doesn't know when to stop. It tests your patience as well as your sleep schedule. That being said, the next up is immutability. In blockchain, everything is recorded. It's like two young lovers scribbling something on a bark of the tree, decades later reunite to find the same script. This is also a double-edged sword because we've all had one or the other friend who has dealt with blockchain and sent few bitcoins to the wrong wallet. It has happened to a lot of us. The next up is transparency. Every blockchain, every transaction that has happened in the blockchain is recorded, must there forever. With that being said, none of us want to put out our financial out there in the open. And who wants to know what was the last NFT that we purchased? Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the lack of trust among the mainstream. Whenever we discuss crypto in a family gathering, we come across range of emotions, from somebody being optic, somebody completely being a pessimist, and somebody just being an opportunist. We have witnessed time and again lack of internal control and due diligence in the process of transacting as well as storing digital asset. In 2014, we had an episode with Mt. Gox, where around approximately 6,000 Bitcoin vanished overnight, purely due to lack of security controls. They went bankrupt, and this is a harsh reminder of the pearls of invincibility. In 2016, we had the famous Dow case that had literally pushed the blockchain community into scrambles to regain control. It is merely a few lines of script that had gone different, and this essentially exaggerated or made sure exposed the early fragility of the smart contract security. In 2018 again, we had issues with CoinHack, where around $500 million completely vanished. This is again due to pure security controls measure that failed. In 2019, we had Quadriga, where it's very difficult to pinpoint what exactly caused this issue. They were lack of fund management, mysterious death of the founder, revealing a lot of custody issues. At the same time, segregation of client assets as well as transparency. We also had evidence of market manipulation through wash trading and front running. One of the largest Ponzi scheme across the globe, around 2 billion investors lost their value. Again, in 2020, we have numerous cases that highlighted the same shortcoming. The pattern is clear. The risk management protocol and internal, where risk management protocols and internal checks falter, the foundation of crypto begins to erode. Each incident chips away the reputation and the viability of digital assets into the mainstream. Now, that being said, the key point of discussion is to make sure how do we protect investors across different parameters. What we have here is essentially a key checklist just to make sure that we are aware of what would be one of the key parameters that one would check when it comes to your trading venue. Essentially, let's say either your broker or your exchange. The first one is we are moving towards a regime which is completely regulated. That being said, wherever you are transacting, whichever jurisdiction you are transacting, it's important to make sure we transact with entities that are regulated. If not in your jurisdiction, at least let's make sure that wherever the entity is established, there are regulations in place that make sure investors are protected. Segregation of asset has been one of the leading factors of all investor losses. When we talk about segregation of assets, it's not only in terms of making sure proprietary assets of an exchange is segregated from the investor asset. We also want to make sure that we have segregated entities, maybe a sister concern, that handles staking and other elements that are normally offered in a trading venue. In terms of security, we have to make sure that they have the right physical as well as virtual security that covers all the gambit of cyber security and so on and so forth. Key management is essentially, for a retail investor, it will be something that is managed by your venue, trading venue. So I don't think this is something that as a retail investor one needs to worry about. But at the same time, what I would suggest is to make sure that when we do our due diligence for the trading venue, we make sure that they have the right policies, procedures, due diligence in order to make sure the seed or the private key is managed properly. One of the key elements in terms of security which I have not called out here is the personal data. Recently, we have seen few cases where personal data can be leaked and it can create a turmoil of effect that comes through. The second point would, the next point would be essentially our liquidity. This depends on which trading venue you are dealing with, how many liquidity providers do they have, and that again dovetails into the pricing that you see. Talking about pricing, most of the trading venue that we have will have some or the other disclaimer given in terms of pricing, disclosures that are given in terms of pricing. Either it could be a flat fee model or a spread based model. Whatever is the case, it's important that you have these disclosure in hand as a retail investor interacting with those platforms. The next one would be network congestion. We have seen early this year, where due to network congestion, the gas fee shot up almost till 300%. I have seen few exchanges interact with this differently. We have one exchange based out of Asia. What they do is, all the transactions that happened in that exchange are kept in a separate ledger, not on the blockchain. So when this ledger happens, there is no congestion that happens. At the end of the day, if you want to transact out of the exchange or you want to withdraw to your own wallet, in that case, there is a blockchain entry that is passed through. I think a lot has been already spoken about threat monitoring. We also have somebody outside dealing with coins that have illegitimate history and so on and so forth. So this is something that we have to make sure that the exchange that you are dealing with has the necessary protocol to do so. So when you withdraw your wallet, when you withdraw your digital asset crypto to your wallet, you are not held down a tainted coin that cannot be transacted in multiple exchanges later on. And finally, in terms of disclosure, there are two key things that one has to see. Historically, or in the essence of protection of investor assets, you will have multiple exchanges that would place some portion of the asset in a custodian or a cold wallet scenario. Are those disclosures given to you? What is the percent of the the assets that you own is segregated into a cold custody. And in terms of listing, delisting protocol, you don't want to deal with an exchange that is fairly lucid when it comes to listing and delisting. Listing would be very easy for an exchange to do, but delisting would require a lot of efforts. It has to make sure that there is investors are protected. At the same time, a predetermined time is given, allocated to them, so that all investors' assets can be safeguarded. Now, that being said, the next point, we are all moving to a world industry where the focus is on having payments that are featured through blockchain or any crypto payments, things like that. This is predominantly for non-financial business corporates essentially. What we have identified is there are essentially two approaches that one can take. The first one would be a hands-on approach, wherein it depends on what is the corporate strategy. If the idea is just to enhance the customer base, they may go for an hands-off model, where you'll never have digital asset on your balance sheet. The objective would be to make sure that you increase the horizon of your clientele. At the same time, you protect your balance sheet based on the inflections or volatility that digital market essentially brings. The second point here, or second approach per se, would be a hands-on model, where you have certain vision, foresight on which direction is the industry evolving, and based on that, you may choose to hold certain digital asset in your own balance sheet. Now, this particular hands-on model will require a lot of integration with your existing operations, which will involve discussion in terms of whether the investment horizon is short-term or is long-term. What are your appetite in terms of managing risk? Do you want the custody of your digital asset with you, or would you want to hire, or would you want to find a vendor who is a custodian who will take care of this for you? Essentially, what we have seen, I'll just go back there a bit. Essentially, what we have seen is this particular model is catching more traction because of FASB's introduction of mark-to-mark in the balance sheet. So, any digital asset that is held on your balance sheet, you will have to bring it to the market value of it. Now, there are certain key parameters that I believe would be essential if you want to decide to go with a hands-off model, again for corporates. What we want to make sure that we are designing our ecosystem, we are designing our procedures in such a way that it doesn't affect our existing client. We want to understand how would it integrate with my existing system as well as with my existing procedures. If you have a corporate and you wish to have this particular feature or this particular transaction payment model across jurisdiction, then you have to make sure that the jurisdiction that you are functioning in helps you or facilitates these kind of transactions. And that being said, if the vendor that you choose as your wallet for your fiat in and fiat out, does they have presence in those jurisdictions? In terms of key risk management, this is fairly a simple model. The risk would predominantly lie with the wallet that you choose, because the transaction is almost immediate, it probably will take less time. You have to make sure the reliability of your vendor who you choose to be your fiat in, fiat out, counterparty partner has real-time presence across the globe. That is what we call follow the sun, so that wherever you are, your vendors are. In terms of the hands-on model, this gets a little more complicated. This is not something that someone would recommend if you are just trying to enter this stage. This would be something that you have to have a detailed strategy in and around it. What is your objective? What do you want to achieve in a short period of horizon? And how do you want to integrate, and what kind of risk do you want to actually place in your balance sheet? One of the key discussions that normally happens is what does the treasury think? How do they manage cash? How do they manage digital asset as from a point of view of not only short-term liquidity, but also in terms of balance sheet management? The other point, I think it's fairly important, because we spoke about hot and cold wallet. In terms of multilateral wallet, this is essentially something that Treasury should consciously manage in this model, because they have to decide how much digital asset would they want to keep in their hot wallet so that the transaction flow doesn't get affected. At the same time, how much or how many digital asset would they want to keep it in the store in the cold wallet, wherein historically the access is pretty difficult. It will take at least 24-hour window for you to access those digital assets. We have seen certain custodians recently shrink down that timeline to around 4-6 hours, depending on the custodian you are dealing with. There are issues, there are complications, but what I strongly believe is this model would be something for a sophisticated model moving forward, and one should embrace that. Okay. We have discussed this predominantly across the two approaches that we have discussed. Essentially is making sure we have aligned in terms of overall strategy. We have a short-term and the long-term objective. We understand what kind of partners do you want to interact with, both internal and external stakeholders. Figure out what is the key skill set that you would require in order to move ahead with this model. Once you have all that jotted down, clear vision, identification of resources, talent, and vendors that would require, you move ahead with adoptability. In that case, you will start preparing yourself, being operationally ready. You would interact with vendor, bring them on board. Once that is done, you will see on a real-time basis how are you performing as compared to what you had initially envisioned. And finally, if you have to make sure there is scalability there. Let's say in the future you want to expand the number of digital assets that you want to acquire or number of digital assets you want to actually transact in. You have to make sure that your vendors, your wallet features have those capability innately developed in it. Now that being said, as Deloitte, we are spread across 33 countries, specifically focusing on blockchain. Historically, we have served more than 400 clients, and actively we have around 2,000 professionals engaged in digital assets and blockchain. Now, all that said, in my personal opinion, trust is something that takes significant amount of time to build. With maturity, there comes responsibility, and we are happy here. We are here to serve you. We want to be let the risk management and due diligence be your sidekick in this journey. Robin to your Batman, if I may say so. And Deloitte as your partners, allies, we would like to be the Alfred to your Batman also. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this was intuitive. We are here for the next 2 days. We are happy to interact with you. And thank you all for your time and attention.